What's good, everybody? My name is Alckemy, and today we're going to be doing some exploration with FM. I'm going to be showing you how to not only create respaces with this, but also how to explore and just mess around until you find something weird and wonky. Something kind of like this. I don't know, this one was super cool. It kind of reminded me of some kind of old school spooky ghost, right? Ooh. But two things. One, I'm still recovering from COVID. I sound much better, but if I cough or if I'm sounding different, then that's why. Oh, there we go. The second thing is that we still have a giveaway going on. I'm trying to get to 100 Ether members, and once we reach that goal, I'm giving away what is known as a Sensal Morph. It is an MPE device that is wireless and portable. It has a bunch of different faceplates. It's super awesome, but you can no longer buy it. So if you want a chance to win that, sign up for the Ether membership or above, and the Alckemy team, which is just me, appreciates it very much. So let's take a look at this. If I were to turn this off, which is our neural processing, which I've covered that to death, then you can see that there are these harmonics here that are imperfect. And this is really important because what ends up happening is that every once in a while you'll end up finding some kind of weird, wonky texture whenever you start doing this. But you can also see that depending on what the waveform is, the frequency modulation in general is kind of like injecting the waveform into another waveform, which is kind of cool to think about. It's like when that dude from The Matrix, Agent Smith, sticks his hand inside people and then they become Agent Smith. That's like the easiest way that I can explain FM in a nutshell. And it's much more elaborate than that, but yeah, just think of it that way. So whenever you are doing stuff like this, then the first goal that you kind of can accomplish is by honestly just like taking some waveforms and then FMing them into each other. And a lot of times you're going to get nothing. You're going to get a jumbled mess, which is fine because obviously imperfect ratios is what creates like that chaos in the first place. But every once in a while you might stumble upon something that has like some weird division of a harmonic, and that ends up sounding really cool. But typically speaking, when you're talking about chords and all that stuff in general, the reason why it sounds pleasing is because there's some kind of like perfect ratio that happens, right? So for example, a second harmonic would actually be an octave. So if I were to FM this within itself, right? Or if I were to just play the saw wave, and then I think the third harmonic is another octave and a fifth, and then like there's some kind of like exponential ratio thing that goes with that. But even still, the cool thing about doing all this kind of stuff is like you don't always know what you're going to get, and it's kind of fun to just twist knobs. And that was probably why FM synthesis back in the day was so beloved, was because you could just destroy things. But basically, to start exploring, just set up a couple of waveforms. We'll do a wavetable, and then we'll pull up one of my own just for the sake of being different. How about Gurgith? Look it up on Google. You'll be repulsed. But, excuse me. But with that, we can do FM in a lot of different ways within Faceplant. We can go FM to this. We can also go FM to other things. We can actually FM into the self, which will change the waveform as well. So by messing with all these and then changing the harmonics at an arbitrary number, we can go ahead and just start playing with noise and having fun with that. One thing that you want to do though is just have a limiter over here. I don't think that anything is going to be insane because FM is usually pretty controlled, but you know, it's better to be safe than sorry. Okay, that doesn't sound too bad, but so off the bat, we're already getting noise, right? Which doesn't sound any good. But what is cool is that sometimes whenever you hit a key that's different than the root note, then you can get some really cool stuff to line up. That's actually really cool. We don't know what pitch that is, but it doesn't really matter. But once you have something like that, it goes into either A, processing that note alone, or B, resample it, and then let's detect the key. And the way that you would do that would be to kind of look at this and then be like, all right, let's just find the fundamental of whatever that key that was. So I'm going to pull off of that again and then maybe hopefully not pull up a shelf. There we go. So that's somewhere around that B region, right? So we can actually use that and pull that out. And then we can either A, shift it up, or we can do different frequency shifting, and there's different ways to tune this. But either way, it's really cool because it gives you some different approaches to making sound that's just beyond, you know, pushing F or something to win. The other thing is, like, once you have something interesting like this, you can start to process it as like a means of a mid bass or something, or just a texture or pad or whatever it is that you want to do. But for example, if we toss on something like this and turn on the master mix, we can just kind of see how that works and see what it does. I need to turn on the random depth. Let me come into here and make sure that all this stuff is working. Yeah, for whatever reason, that's not working. There we go. And suddenly it sounds like I don't know, firing some kind of laser beam that's sucking the life out of somebody. And then you could use that as either an effect or into something that could be used for, I don't know, whatever that sounds cool with. Use it for a gun. So yeah, that's the like explorative aspect of that. The other thing is that this is actually a really good tool for creating sub-bass movement, or really any kind of movement in general. But what I've been doing as of late is just using a simple sine wave and detuning this against another waveform. So maybe say like a wavetable, and then we find something else that's kind of interesting. Let's try Garbador. And then we do the same thing where we apply our FM to where we have a little bit of low end. Now for one, if I just mess with the FM, you can hear that it actually is already starting to create like cool like growls and stuff, and that's like the tutorial that I wanted to avoid because that's what everybody has done to death. Right? But what you can do instead is just leave that to be static and then start to play with the harmonic again. And if you keep this relatively simple and you actually adjust these ratios in accordance, so if you move this down, you move the other one up, then you can actually get some really cool movement in this way. And then all you have to do is to add your filter, and then you can hear that we've got some really interesting sub-bass movement that's going on as well. And sometimes this is a better way to create a Reese or to create movement in the low end, because you're not really running into phase cancellation. There's actually a signal that's happening the entire time. And what I mean by that is whenever you're using FM, the ratios from this detuning is not like conflicting with the phase. It's doing something different, I believe. But what is different is if you were to just use something, say like unison, then the offset or the detuning of these will cancel each other out, and you just end up getting a different timbre. So one last example of that would be like if I went here to use an analog thing, listen to how this Reese's sound whenever we start playing with the pitching versus if we were to do it with FM. So let's just add some distortion here. Right, I've done that one to death. I love that one, but it's a little bit outplayed. So now let's go ahead and try to do the same thing, but approach it with FM instead. So we'll go to phase, I guess. And this is going to start to sound like a square, of course, but now it's still a little bit more of a saw wave, but let's go ahead and detune that and see what that sounds like. You can see that the movement patterns and the way that the sound oscillates is much different than if it were just doing typical phase oscillation. And that's just because of how FM works in general. But you actually end up getting a cleaner sound, but a more aggressive sound as well. So I don't know, you got to take your pick. But anyways, that's some stuff that I wanted to show you with FM. Again, I apologize for being sick, but hopefully this tutorial was super interesting for you to figure out how to do some cool stuff. And if you like the channel, then consider subscribing. And I got a bunch of master classes and stuff available for the Arcanum stuff that I'm working on. And yeah, I'm just trying to work while I'm sick. So much love, everybody. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments.